So good evening to you and thank you very much for your time. Let's start with the question, why is the current TV licensing model inadequate as a source of funding for the public broadcaster?
Thanks very much, Oli, and good evening to your viewers. So basically, the biggest challenge with the current TV license model is one, very low compliance rate, and also secondly, aggravated by very low collection rate. So as a result, that is not enough, or the SABC has not been able to generate sufficient revenue from that particular source, because generally there is a low compliance rate from TV sets holders in complying with that. And as a result of that, and also I think given the challenges around the financial sustainability of the SABC, the conversation in the last few years, even before preceding my appointment to this role, has always been about what could be better ways of, one, looking at a method in place for or as an alternative to the TV license collection, which would be able to boost the SABC's efforts to collect revenue from, TV license from TV owners. And then in the last few years, a conversation has been taking place, I think even globally, about new media services which have entered into the market.
Yeah.
And those, encapsulating even streaming streaming services. As a matter of principle, I, for one, is opposed to any initiative that would introduce new taxation methods to the public. Generally, the South African public is largely, overtaxed. So I think the conversation and all the controversy that has erupted in the last few days with this mention of the levy was basically diluting the conversation. One conversation is about we need a new way and a new method that would potentially substitute the TV license collection regime, because that has been ineffective to date. The second question is about how do you look at the role that new media services in this digital space that we're playing in can play more of a role. In other dispensation, you have the audio and visual media services contributing towards local content, production of local content, or contributing a particular percentage of their annual turnover towards media development and media content production in the specific countries. So it is exploratory in terms of the conversations that have been taking place in the last few years. There is no formal proposal on the table to say that South Africa should be going towards a levy, because as you have rightfully pointed out, the risk with that is the potential additional cost that would have on consumers of television or media services. The big challenge we face in a digital world is that the ways of consuming television services is shifting from traditionally having a TV set in a household, because people prefer to consume it through cell phones or their tablet devices. And we are in a new territory where we haven't actually set the best policy way to see how we handle the introduction of these audio and visual media services in our dispensation.
You've already touched on one of the concerns, and that is subscription fees possibly going up, but the other could be pushing away international players to reconsider their offerings in South Africa or on the South African market. Is that a concern for you at all?
Of course, it will always be a concern. I think the primary concern, the two primary concerns would be in any conversation or solution that we are seeking to explore in trying to regulate the presence of audio and visual media services. One, it has to be one that does not impose additional costs on South Africans, right? Because we want South Africans to continue to have access to enjoy these media services. And secondly, it shouldn't be one that makes our country a difficult place to be able to do business in. And that's why I said, you know, the considerations is a financial contribution towards local content production. The best way to go towards is a contribution of a particular percentage on annual turnover of these services, the sufficient path to go in. And these are the conversations that, you know, we have to investigate. We have to then be able to see what are also the global trends, so that whatever ultimate decision gets taken, it does not prejudice the consumers, in this case, which are South Africans.
Have you thought about a potential impact for local content creators and what this might be for them, the implications of this?
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying that our interest is to always make sure that, one, there is, you know, increased volumes of local production rather than less of those, because that unlocks new talent to be exposed in the arts and culture spaces, also in terms of just new media talent that emerges. And it's a conversation that requires us to really have cool heads and see that what is the best practical methods, rather than seeking populist and shortcuts method, which would just be, you know, more taxation or introduce things that might have long-term consequences in destroying a media space that requires us to create an enabling environment for the industry and the sector to thrive, while also reducing the cost of enjoying media services on the public.
In conclusion, Minister, the complaint from South Africans all the time will be that monies, public monies, are not spent where they ought to be. There's corruption at times. If the streaming levy were to be policy, how would you, or what measures would be implemented to ensure that there is transparency in how the money is being spent and that these funds are used effectively to fund the SABC?
Yeah, you're asking me to imagine a future that I can't even tell at this stage, because the idea, as I said, is not a proposal on the table. But your bigger question is about public monies being allocated for the reasons that they've been set out for and being used correctly. And I think you will discover that, you know, particularly with this 7th administration, there is an emphasis on, one, prudent use of government resources, consequence management, and also for public entities, you know, to be able to find and seek ways of being profitable. It is no longer practical nor sustainable to rely on the, you know, on the national purse to be able to fund state entities. I mean, in the conversation that you had with my colleague, the Minister of Finance, is one who's constantly emphasizing that the public purse is shrinking increasingly. So this historic culture of thinking that, you know, there will always be sufficient to bail out state entities is no longer applicable. Therefore, we need, one, to ensure that the right people are appointed in these entities. Where there is underperformance, there's consequences, and that these entities, including the public broadcaster, are able to run and generate revenue that releases them from being permanently dependent on state resources alone.
Parting shot, are you going to support the Finance Minister's budget speech come Wednesday? You invoked his name, and perhaps it is the best way for us to end this conversation. I'm asking you to put on your DA thinking cap now.
Yeah. You are already living in the future. Let's get to Wednesday. Let's hear what he has to present to Cabinet on Wednesday, and then we will take it from there.
Living into the future. All right. Thank you very much.
Wednesday is just around the corner. Wednesday is just around the corner.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. The Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies talking to us there from Pretoria.